What if ancient spiritual wisdom, modern quantum physics, and these pretty radical feels about reality, what if they all point to the same kind of astonishing truth?
That's a heck of a question to start with.
Right. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a really unique text. It's a 12-chapter poetic exegetical essay called The Kingdom, the Code, and the Way, a gospel of the simulated self.
Sounds intense. Poetic exegetical.
It is. So for this deep dive, we're taking this single but incredibly rich source. It blends the apocalyptic sayings of Jesus specifically from the Lost Gospel of Q, which isn't in the Standard Bible.
Right, the Q source. Fascinating stuff.
With the, paradoxical wisdom of the Tao Te Ching.
Lao Tzu, foundational Taoism.
Exactly. And then throws in the really disorienting ideas from simulation theory. So our goal here is basically to give you a shortcut, the key insights from this synthesis.
And just to give a quick flyover from the essay's own abstract, it approaches Jesus not really as a religious figure in the usual sense, but more like it calls him a radical glitch in the matrix.
Yeah.
Someone exposing the illusion.
The glitch, okay.
Yeah. And Lao Tzu's Tao, that's presented as the underlying source code that shapes reality.
Mm-hmm.
Always flowing, always yielding, but underpinning everything.
The code beneath the surface.
Mm-hmm. And Alan Watts kind of provides the connective tissue.
Yeah.
He translates these big abstract ideas into something more embodied, his takes on the world as play, the self being illusory.
And truth found when you dissolve doctrines.
Yeah.
Classic Watts.
Right. So each chapter of this essay basically deconstructs parts of what it terms the simulated self. And it reveals the kingdom of God not as a future place, but as this present moment collapse of illusion.
Collapse of illusion. Okay.
So in this view, Jesus' parables become decryption keys. The crucifixion isn't just a historical event, it's a systemic failure.
Oh.
And resurrection, that's a reboot. The core idea, really, is that spiritual awakening isn't about getting to somewhere else. It's about returning to the real world that's always been here, just hidden beneath the interface.
Okay, let's really dig into that. Starting with chapter 1, the Tao that became code. How does this essay make that connection? Ancient Taoism and modern computer simulation seems like a leap.
It does, but the essay draws some pretty striking parallels. It describes the Tao as, the path that walks itself, the mother of 10,000 things, unseen, but moving everything, the pattern beneath perception.
Okay, the unnameable source.
Exactly, and it connects that directly to the idea of code humming beneath everything in a simulation, something running the show without us noticing.
Right.
And it leans heavily on that paradox from Tao Te Ching 1. The way that can be spoken is not the eternal way, and naming is the mother of 10,000 things.
Meaning the truly real can't be pinned down with words.
Precisely. Which, the essay argues, mirrors how some simulation theories suggest reality is only rendered at the moment of observation.
Yeah.
It only solidifies when we look. Like the Tao doesn't do anything specific, yet everything gets done. The simulation only appears when called into form.
That's a powerful analogy. Tao is the base code. But then how does Jesus fit into that? When he says, the kingdom is within you, we usually hear that metaphorically, right? How does the text argue he's speaking technically about the ego being like a UI?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. The essay suggests Jesus is speaking with a kind of technical precision. The kingdom of God, this divine pattern, isn't out there somewhere or coming later. It's the unrendered space behind your ego.
Unrendered space.
Right. And it pulls in Alan Watts here, describing the ego as that hallucination of separateness, a really convincing user interface that makes us forget we're actually part of the whole system.
We mistake the menu for the whole computer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this ties straight back to Lao Tzu's warning. When the Tao is lost, there is goodness. When goodness is lost, there is morality. We invent these systems, ethics, laws, because we've forgotten the original flow, the code itself.
To build frameworks on top of the illusion.
Yes. And Jesus, in this interpretation, is positioned as this great glitch in the spiritual matrix.
Yes.
He's exposing these layers of illusion, not necessarily to start a new religion, but maybe to prompt a return to that inner stillness, non-attachment, basically, back to the Tao.
Okay, a glitch exposing the system. Let's build on that. Chapter 2, the taboo of remembering you are it. What's this it we're supposed to remember we are? And why is remembering it a taboo?
The it is, it's the underlying awareness, the source, the fundamental consciousness that's looking out through our eyes, through the avatar.
The watcher behind the character.
Kind of, yeah. And Watts called this the taboo against knowing who you are. The deepest fear, according to this view, isn't death or punishment, but that the whole separation thing might just drop away, that the curtain falls and you see the real self, not just the story you tell yourself.
And why is that taboo? Why would the system forbid that?
Well, the essay argues that the simulation, this whole dynamic play of life, needs the illusion of separation to keep running.
Yeah.
If everyone realized they were the it, the game collapses. So the ego, that sense of being a separate self, acts like a firewall. It maintains the illusion, keeps the kingdom hidden.
Right, the firewall makes sense. So if realizing you are it is the big taboo, how do Jesus' teachings break that? Especially something like, if anyone wants to save his life, he must lose it. How does that act as a taboo breaker?
The essay calls Jesus the taboo breaker, precisely for this reason. His sayings aren't presented as gentle advice, but as active deletion keys. They're designed like lines of code meant to dismantle the ego program.
Deletion keys, I like that.
Yeah. So losing your life isn't about dying physically. It's about ego death.
Yeah.
It's about unplugging from that whole program of identity, who you think you are.
Letting go of the avatar.
Exactly. And this connects right into Lao Tzu's knowing not knowing is true knowledge. It's about recognizing the limits of the ego's understanding. And when Jesus says, the kingdom will not come with signs to be observed, behold, it is within you, the essay reads that ontologically. It's not a place you can point to.
Because it's the pointer itself, maybe?
Something like that. Like the tell, it can't be rendered externally. You can't track it or measure it. It's invisible if you're looking for it with the ego, but it's present when you just surrender to it.
Yeah.
It highlights this core idea. The deepest truths aren't things the ego can grab. They're experienced by letting go.
Okay, this is getting deep. Chapter 3, Glitches in the Flesh, the Beatitudes. This is a really radical take. These blessings, blessed are the poor, blessed are those who mourn, they're not just moral lessons here, but divine paradoxes, even fractures in the logic of empire. How? How are they glitches?
Well, think about a simulation, a system. It runs on predictable patterns, rules, cause and effect, right? You do X, you get Y. Usually Y involves power, wealth, status.
The standard metrics of success.
Exactly. The Beatitudes flip that completely. They're presented as intentional glitches, breaks in that code of dominance. They celebrate what the system ignores or devalues: poverty, hunger, grief, meekness. They shatter the logic of input leads to predictable, successful output.
So they break the rules of the game.
Right. And the essay connects this straight to Lao Tzu. Under heaven, nothing is more soft and yielding than water. Yet for attacking the hard and strong, nothing can surpass it. The glitch, in this sense, wins by not playing the power game. The poor, the meek, they are unrendered by the system's metrics. They're empty, in a way, and therefore open to being filled by the kingdom, by the underlying reality.
That's a fascinating comparison between Jesus and Lao Tzu and subverting power.
It really is. It shows this shared wisdom about finding strength in what the world deems weak.
So framing it this way, what does it imply about suffering? Like hunger and grief aren't just bad things to endure, but existential doorways.
Precisely. The essay suggests blessed are those who hunger now or weep now aren't just about future rewards. These states, hunger, grief, are seen as moments where the system's usual comforts or distractions fail. Hunger means you haven't been filled up with the illusions. Grief means the mask has slipped.
You're raw, you're open to something else.
Exactly. You're more sensitive to the real, the thing humming beneath the code. The hungry aren't sedated, the grieving aren't easily fooled. And Jesus, in this interpretation, isn't just comforting people. He's acting like a Taoist Zen hacker. He doesn't just explain the glitch, he lives it. He shows a reality where loss leads to clarity, emptiness leads to presence.
A Taoist Zen hacker. I love that image. Okay, chapter 4, the kingdom within is not rendered. This deepens that idea. The kingdom isn't a place, maybe not even a state, but the one doing the observing. Why unrendered?
Right, it takes that kingdom is within you line very seriously, maybe even literally in a conceptual way. It's not external, not geographic. It's like a background process of our own being. And it's unrendered because it doesn't really exist as an object or place until you align with it.
Like potential energy. Or uncompiled code.
Exactly like uncompiled code. You can't summon it, you can't point and say, there it is, because the act of objectifying it makes it disappear. It's relational, it's presence, not place.
So it connects to the Tao being hidden but always present.
Perfectly. And to Watts's idea of the self with a capital S, the undivided observer, the kingdom, like the Tao, is always here, but you never see it directly because it is the seeing, it's the awareness itself.
Which leads to that paradox you mentioned. The simulation renders only what the user requests, but the kingdom cannot be requested. It can only be surrendered to. How does that surrender actually work?
That's a really key philosophical point here. The ego wants proof, signs, spectacle. like the devil offering kingdoms, right? But the kingdom offers silence, stillness. It shows up disguised, maybe in the ordinary. It's revealed only when you stop trying to get something, when you have nothing to prove.
So surrender is letting go of the ego's need for control and validation.
I think that's the core of it. It's not about believing in something new, but remembering something fundamental. Like Watt said, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. You can't grasp it. The kingdom is just recognized when we stop pretending it's not here. It's almost like the quantum observer effect. Reality collapses into form when attention is present, but here the kingdom is the attention, the awareness.
Okay. From the unrendered kingdom to the rendered self. Chapter 5, Debugging the Self-Ego and Identity. The essay calls the ego an avatar, social fiction, a looping process. What's debugging the self mean here, and how do Jesus' teachings act as the debug function?
Yeah, the ego is described as this bundle of habits, preferences, fears, reactions, a kind of hallucination so widespread we call it sanity, a loop that just keeps repeating itself, and it really fears stillness, because stillness might break the loop.
So debugging isn't literal suicide,
It's suicide of identity, the essay calls it, not physical death, but the death of that constructed, narrative self. And Jesus' Q teachings, those sharp, paradoxical sayings like, whoever tries to keep their life will lose it, they act like little logic bombs. They disrupt the ego's programming, make it short-circuit, crash the system.
crashing the ego's OS.
Basically, yeah, revealing the real you, the awareness underneath.
And building on that, the text says there is no separate doer of the deeds. Deeds simply happen. How do Watts and Lao Tzu back this up, this idea of a transparent self where the avatar isn't the cause?
Watts is quoted directly. There is no separate doer. Deeds simply happen. The essay interprets this through the simulation lens. The avatar does not cause movement. The movement generates the avatar.
So I don't breathe. Breath happens through me. I don't think, thoughts just appear.
That's the idea. You're the space, the witness, not the originator of the action. And the Tao Te Ching reinforces this hugely, with the image of the sage who is transparent, has no fixed identity, just flows like water, taking the shape of the container.
Like water, that comes up again and again.
It does. So debugging the ego is really about returning to that state of transparency, dissolving that illusion of being a separate controller and just rejoining the natural flow of things. It's a deep dive into non-duality, really.
It really is. Now, chapter 6, this one genuinely made me pause. The devil is a sysadmin, reframing the devil not as pure evil, but as a system administrator. What's the test he's offering Jesus? And why refuse admin privileges?
It's a provocative reframe, isn't it? The devil here isn't some cosmic villain, but more like part of the simulation's architecture. The sysadmin who maintains the rules, the gravity, desire, the temptation and reward loops that make the game feel real.
He keeps the system running, basically.
Yeah. So he offers Jesus conditional power. All these kingdoms, all this access, it's yours if you just play by my rules. Worship the system, essentially. The test is, will Jesus trade his connection to the source, his awareness, for power within the program?
And he refuses. Why? Because he sees it's just part of the illusion.
Exactly. He sees through the rendering. He knows the kingdoms are just projections, temporary displays within the simulation. Refusing the admin privileges is recognizing that real power isn't about grabbing a throne inside the game. It's realizing there is no actual throne. It's illusory. This echoes the Taoist sage, who knows that clinging to power leads to losing it.
Wow. Okay, so that's a powerful way to look at temptation. What does that mean for us then? Watt says, as soon as you identify with your role, you are no longer free. How does this sysadmin figure seduce us into identifying with our roles? And what's the real hack to freedom?
Well, the sysadmin, the devil figure, is brilliant because he offers exactly what the ego craves most. Status, recognition, control, feeling important. That's the seduction. We buy into the roles, parent, worker, leader, victim, whatever, and identify with them completely.
We forget we're the player, not just the piece on the board.
Perfectly put. As Watts warns, we become just a function within the system and lose our freedom. So the real hack, according to this essay, isn't about winning the game or becoming the new sysadmin. It's realizing the throne, the power, the whole status game is a phantom node. It's a mirage designed to trap your awareness.
So true power isn't taking control.
It's realizing you were never separate from the source, from the underlying reality in the first place. You don't need to gain power within the illusion when you are the reality it's projected upon. It's a subtle but profound shift in perspective on control and freedom.
It really is. Okay, chapter 7, Parables as Decryption Keys. This looks at how Jesus taught. Why use these coded stories, these parables? And what does it mean they're fractal stories or keys that only unlock once you stop trying to pry the door open?
The essay argues that direct answers, straight information, often just bounces off the ego. The ego wants clarity it can control, data it can file away. Parables work differently.
They bypass the logical mind.
Sort of. They encrypt the truth like a seed phrase in crypto, hiding it from the unready meaning, the ego that just wants to win or possess the knowledge. They're not meant to be instantly solved. They're designed to be interruptions, little glitches in your mental operating system.
Glitches again.
Yeah, they're meant to echo, to sit with you, to work on you over time and awaken a deeper kind of knowing. That's why they only unlock when you stop prying. If you approach them like a puzzle to be cracked, you miss the point. You have to let them work on you.
That sounds very Zen or Taoist even. How does this line up with Lao Tzu's style in the Tao Te Ching, or Watts saying religious ideas should be danced with, not just believed? What's the risk of taking parables too literally?
There's a really strong connection drawn there. The Tao Te Ching's aphorisms are very much like parables or koans. They often seem contradictory. They point beyond logic. They're designed to crack the logic circuit, not feed it.
Right, not just give you an answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Watts' idea of dancing with an idea fits perfectly. You engage with it, feel it out, let it move you, rather than just accepting it as a fixed belief. The danger of literalism, the essay argues pretty strongly, is that it's often just ego disguised as piety. One wants to nail down the mystery, possess the truth, which kills the living quality of it. Parables are meant to be mirrors, invitations to awaken, not just instruction manuals.
Makes sense. Okay, chapter 8, water in the circuit non-resistance. We've touched on water already. Here, non-resistance isn't passive weakness, but a powerful strategy. How does Lao Tzu's be like water connect to Jesus saying turn the other cheek?
The essay really emphasizes water's paradoxical strength. It yields. It flows around things. It erodes the hardest rock through persistence, not brute force.
Soft power.
Exactly. And it connects this directly to turn the other cheek. This isn't interpreted as just being a doormat. It's seen as a deliberate glitch in the violence loop.
How so, a glitch?
Because violence expects a reaction, either fighting back or cowering. Turning the other cheek offers neither. It's an unexpected input. It refuses the expected script, introduces asymmetry, and breaks that cycle of retaliation. You essentially cancel the loop by stepping outside its logic.
Which is exactly what Lao Tzu describes water doing, yielding to overcome.
Precisely. Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water. Yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. It's presented as this deep, shared philosophical insight into how true power operates, often counterintuitively.
Okay, but that's really counterintuitive, isn't it? The ego wants to resist, push back. Yielding feels like losing, like dissolving. How does this counterworld logic of the kingdom let you win without fighting? And why call it the most dangerous thing Jesus does?
Because the ego built itself on contrast, on resistance. I am this, not that. So yielding, dissolving boundaries feels like death to the ego. And Watts nails it. You can't control the world without losing your soul. Jesus' examples giving the cloak to going the extra mile, they totally short-circuit the logic of empire, of quid pro quo.
They don't compute in the systemist terms?
Right, and that's why the essay calls it the most dangerous thing. Systems that control empires, rigid ideologies, even just interpersonal power games, they expect resistance. They know how to handle rebellion. What they can't handle is non-resistance combined with awareness.
Why not?
Because it de-renders the whole loop. The person practicing it refuses to be programmed by the attack. They let the aggression fall into empty space. There's no egoic reaction for the system to hook into. It just dissolves the conflict rather than escalating it. That's deeply subversive.
Subversive non-action. Wow. Okay, this leads directly into chapter 9. The system will crucify you. This suggests that if you do wake up, if you start living this non-resistant, glitchy way, the system rejects you. How is Jesus killed because he glitched the interface? And how does that connect to Watts saying society has no use for people who wake up?
The argument here is stark. Jesus wasn't killed for being nice. He was killed because his core teachings, kingdom within, blessed are the poor, love enemies, turn the other cheek, fundamentally undermine the operating system of both Roman imperial power and the religious structures of the time. They threaten the whole setup.
They broke the simulation's rules too effectively?
Yes. And again, the parallel to the Tao is drawn. When the great Tao is forgotten, righteousness and morality arise, meaning these control systems pop up when the natural spontaneous wisdom is lost. So the system, any system built on illusion, sees the awakened one as an anomaly, a threat. It tries to neutralize the glitch.
How?
by labeling them.
Labeling is key: heretic,
Yeah.
rebel, blasphemer, crazy person, and if that doesn't work, elimination. Crucifixion. The essay argues he was killed not because his message failed, but because he succeeded too well at exposing the illusion. And Watts's point resonates perfectly. Society, built on roles and agreements and status games, often doesn't know what to do with someone who's genuinely woken up. They become useless to institutions because they stop playing the game.
That's chilling, but it makes a certain kind of sense within this framework. So thinking about today, what does this imply about resistance or justice? If the system defends itself, what are the modern forms of crucifixion? How does the simulation contain glitches now?
Well, literal crucifixion is rare, obviously, but the essay suggests modern containment responses are just more subtle. Things like marginalization, censorship, economic pressure, character assassination, social isolation, essentially trying to erase or discredit the glitch.
Silencing the anomaly.
Right, because an awakened presence, someone living from that connected kingdom within state, is inherently ungovernable by the simulation's rules. They can't be bought or threatened in the same way. So in this view, the crucifixion wasn't a defeat. It was the ultimate glitch that crashes the program, an act of de-rendering the system's power that still echoes. It becomes a template for a different kind of freedom.
Wow. Okay, crashing the program leads to Chapter 10, Resurrection is Reboot. This sounds like a really different take on resurrection, not just coming back to life, but a reboot. What comes back is cleaner, simply, stripped of false processes.
Yeah, it reframes resurrection significantly. It's presented as what happens after the ego identity dies, the suicide of identity we talked about. It's the source regaining control. So it's not the old personality, the historical rabbi, coming back exactly the same.
It's something different.
It's Jesus returning as the breath of the kingdom. He's unrecognizable at first. He appears and vanishes. He's not bound by the old roles or even physical laws in the same way. It aligns with the Tao's cyclical nature. Returning is the motion of the Tao. The simulated self dies, and the source, the underlying reality, breathes through that form again, but now cleaner, simpler, without the ego's baggage.
Okay, a reboot to the original operating system, maybe? How would someone like Alan Watts view this kind of resurrection? He often talked about death as the great release. How does this reboot idea connect with remembering you were never separate in the first place?
That's a great question to ponder. Watts definitely emphasized waking up now, not waiting for an afterlife. He saw death as release from the illusion of the separate self. This essay's reboot idea seems compatible in a way. It's not about personal survival after death in the egoic sense.
It's not about the avatar getting a second life.
Right. It's more about the awareness, the source, demonstrating that it was never truly confined to that avatar in the first place. It's waking up from the dream of being just that limited self. The essay uses that Sufi line, "You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop."
Yes.
So the resurrected Jesus isn't a triumphant return of the old ego. He's a reveal. He's demonstrating the Tao, the underlying reality, living through that form without constraint. He doesn't need to conquer anything because he is the reality. He can't be grasped because he's embodying non-separation. It deepens the meaning beyond just physical resuscitation.
Okay, I see the connection. Moving towards the end. Chapter 11. The Child Who Knows the Code. Jesus famously said we must become like little children to enter the kingdom. Why the child? What is it about being childlike that bypasses the code or the script we get programmed with?
The essay suggests the child is key because they haven't been fully scripted yet. They haven't downloaded all the societal code, the identities, the roles, the egoic structures, name, rank, status. These don't mean much yet.
But they're still open, still exploring.
Exactly. They explore. They don't try to trap reality with questions. They feel things directly. So becoming like a child isn't about becoming childish or regressing. It's about hitting reset, remembering the state before all the programming, before the ego hardened.
And Lao Tzu talks about the ideal person being infant-like too, right?
He does. Soft and yielding, full of vital energy, responding authentically in the moment without layers of pretense. The essay sees the child as this fluid consciousness that isn't addicted to form or identity. They bypass the code because they haven't been fully patched by the system yet. They can still feel the hum behind the code, the underlying reality.
So the child is like the uncorrupted user, maybe even a spiritual hacker in a way. And how does Watts's idea of awakening as the rediscovery of play tie in?
Uncorrupted user, that's a good way to put it. They haven't accepted all the terms and conditions of the simulation yet. And Jesus' teachings that invert hierarchies, the first shall be last, are framed as this child inversion protocol. It glitches the whole status matrix, turns the world's values upside down. It's a kind of spiritual hack.
Hacking the social OS.
Right. And Watts' emphasis on play fits perfectly. His famous line, "The universe is playing hide and seek and you are it," suggests reality isn't fundamentally serious or grim or a problem to be solved. It's a dance, a game. Becoming full of child is about rediscovering that playful curiosity, that tenderness, that openness. It's about unhardening, letting go of the need to win or control, and just participating in the flow of being.
Rediscovering play. I like that. Okay, finally, chapter 12. The kingdom is the collapse of the simulation. Let's define terms here. What is the simulation in this final context? And how does it collapse? Not violently, but silently, just by withdrawing belief.
So the simulation here isn't necessarily saying we live in a literal computer program run by aliens, though it uses that metaphor. It's more the system of appearance mediated by the ego. It's our ego-filtered perception of the world, the story we tell ourselves about separation, competition, good versus bad, self versus other.
The overlay on reality.
Exactly. It's a very persuasive overlay. Makes us believe the map is the territory. And the collapse happens, the essay argues, not violently, not tragically, but silently, like fog burning off in the sun when we stop buying into it, when we withdraw our belief from the ego's narrative.
So the simulation runs on belief.
It's sustained by our participation, by our belief in its reality. When that belief is withdrawn, when we stop playing the ego's game, the whole rendering just dissolves. There's nothing holding it up anymore.
So what kind of ethical worldview comes out of this if the simulation collapses when we stop believing the ego script? The essay says Jesus destroys the rendering engine by dying to that script. How do simple acts, like forgiveness or love, become source code into a false world that makes the system shimmer and reveal the Tao?
The ethics implied seem to be rooted in non-participation in the ego's game. Like the Tao Te Ching advises, don't fight the structure head on. Just stop feeding it energy, dissolve it by not playing along. Jesus destroys the rendering engine not with power, but by living outside the ego's script, turning the other cheek, loving enemies, forgiving.
These acts introduce a different kind of code.
That's the idea. They're like injecting source code into a false world. They operate on a different logic, the logic of unity, of non-duality, of the Tao of the kingdom. And if enough people start living from that code, well, the old system, the simulation, starts to shimmer, crack, and reveal the Tao beneath because, as Watts put it, you are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself. Your awakened presence is the place where the illusion ends.
So the collapse isn't an apocalypse, it's more like waking up.
Exactly. It feels like taking a deep breath, a sense of stillness, a weight lifting. It's freedom. The kingdom isn't a new place you arrive at. It's what's left when the simulation, the illusion, is no longer needed and just dissolves. It's what remains. So, wrapping up this deep dive, the journey this essay maps out is pretty profound, isn't it? It takes us from seeing the Tao as this kind of cosmic operating system
To the ego as a firewall keeping us from it.
to the Beatitudes as glitches breaking the system's logic.
And resurrection as a fundamental reboot of being.
Yeah. And across Jesus, Lao Tzu, Alan Watts, the message seems surprisingly consistent, at least in this interpretation. Awakening isn't about striving for some future heaven. It's about remembering the truth of who you already are right here, right now.
And that epilogue really hits home. You were never really separate. You were never lost. You were always inside the Tao, rendered by the kingdom, dreamed by the source. The simulation just made us forget.
And maybe, the essay hints, forgetting was part of the game all along, part of the path back to remembering.
So here's something to chew on. If the kingdom really is the collapse of the simulation, what personal scripts, what avatars that you identify with might you be ready to let go of, even just a little? What might it look like to glimpse that unrendered reality that's supposedly already within you? What would it feel like to live, even for a moment, as if you already know the code?